first of all, thank you, Bob. Thank you for the invitation. And I bring greetings from Raleigh, but I actually live right across the river in Brunswick County. I did not move to Wake to make that my home. My family and my church family are still there, and though if we were otherwise led, we may have moved, but my wife's family's been from the Ocean Isle Beach area since the 1760s, and I've been from my community since the 1760s, and we're related to everyone within cat throwing or rock throwing distance. So there was no reason to go up there and spread the wealth among 10 million people and 1 million in Wake County. Good afternoon. My name is Marion Warren, and I am a Christian. The reason that's important is because in this day and age, and in the civil government that was established for the betterment of man while we were here in this earth, sometimes it's difficult to find a group of men that are willing to say that all together at one time. Just like I can find a cousin or an uncle that's been to prison, sometimes it's hard to find a believer on their path. And it's nice to be here with you today. So what I would like to share, and first of all, thank you for that prayer. Thank you for that prayer for us, lifting up civil government, specifically the courts. And I like to appreciate what you have done here in front of believers. Judge Harrell, thank you. You've been a good friend and a good brother. And I have a tremendous number of friends across the room here. But I would burn all of my time talking about stories of good friends and friends I've just met. So let's turn our attention back to a young boy who was raised in a church that the same 5 families, maybe some different names, but basically the same 5 families attend to this day, and was raised in a godly household with a mother and a father that made sure that if you were well enough for your feet to hit the floor, you were well enough to go through the church door. So I do not have the testimony of that one who has been brought and humbled through life. I did not have hubris. The first time the knock came, I accepted it because I was well prepared. So imagine, if you will, in this day and age, that a 4th grade teacher led me to the Lord. I was 10 years old. It was at school. And I made a profession of faith in a schoolhouse. The beauty of where I live is that, you know what? Students still pray. Students still pray at the school that I was led to the Lord in. They still say the Pledge of Allegiance. Now they follow the law. And the problem is that while no one was looking, the devil, the enemy, convinced us that God and government were antithetical, and that you couldn't pray in school. And you can. And thank God I had someone that was willing to pray back in 1976 when everyone was talking about separation of church and state. And that teacher led me to the Lord. And my life was uneventful. There were the foibles of youth. There was the lack of keeping your eye turned toward the face of the Lord. Youthful indiscretions. But until I look back today and talk to you, I didn't realize how many times I had my life snatched from the jaws of death and disaster just because I was blind to that which I was walking back and forth through. That I now know that I had a hedge of protection around me, and that I had a praying, faithful family and church family that supported me. There were all kinds of schools that I could have gone to. I was accepted to schools up north. It snowed in Syracuse when we visited up there, and me and Daddy decided that was too far away from home. But, you know, Campbell University was a great place for me to go. There's not many places where you're pursuing your business degree that you're going to get new and Old Testament thought rolled into your education. And I had that opportunity, all the while being supported by those people at home. I just celebrated yesterday 22 years of marriage. I have been gifted by God 4 wonderful children. But imagine this, that idyllic walk where things came easy and things I never took up drink. I never went to prison. I never became a drug addict. I never hit rock bottom. I didn't even see the bottom. I didn't know that a rock could hit bottom. I'd had that kind of a walk in life. I'm sorry to be disappointing. I'm sorry that I don't have something awesome to share. But yes, I do. I have something that's incredible to share. I had been married. I live in the middle of the green swamp. That's the absolute truth. There's no other way of putting it. If you get lost in Brunswick County, you're 7 miles from my house. This summer at some point at 11:30 at night, I'm going to get a knock on my door with a caravan of people with their emergency flashers on, and they're going to be inevitably from western Pennsylvania or Ohio or southern New Jersey, and I'm the house that they're willing to stop at, and it goes like this. And I come out, sir, sorry to bother you, and it's the wife, it's never the husband. The husband's standing behind the wife, and we're sorry to bother you, but can you tell us how to get to the beach? We're lost. And I go, really? Go down the road till you hit an intersection, turn right, turn left, and you're there. That's where I live. However, I took my wife, who would have nothing to do with me in high school. I almost got her kicked out of her dorm room at Carolina because I went out with all of her suite mates. I had a ball with her friends. Would have nothing to do with me because she was a very godly young lady. And I was fortunate enough to be paired with her. I was evenly yoked. It was a blessing in and of itself. So I'm from Exham. I'm from Ash. She's from Ocean Isle. We are married in her home church. We ride off into the sunset on a boat. We fly to Tahiti for our honeymoon, and then we return to the middle of the green swamp to reside. And we were married right before we had 2 hurricanes in 1996. And we bought my mother's family farm from my grandmother's heirs. And when we got home, the first thing I had to do was to mow grass about that high. And so we didn't have a lawnmower. I'd never had a responsibility. My parents, I grew up on a farm. We had equipment. So the first thing me and my wife proudly go to purchase is we're going to go get a lawnmower. And we go to Sears and Charlotte, and we order a lawnmower, and we come back. And I asked my dad if I could borrow a piece of equipment. And I borrow one of his heavy commercial mowers that we use for the farm. And my wife is standing there, my father's standing there, and I get ready to load it. And the ramps give way and it flips over on top of me and I break L4 and L5. I'd been married 2 weeks. And I tried to stand up. And I couldn't. I couldn't feel the bottom of my feet. And I heard the snap. I was good when I went down. It's when I tried to push the mower off of me that it snapped L4 and L5. And I was taken to the hospital in Whiteville. We won't make the commentary for that. And they told me I'd bruised my back. Well, how long do I have to sue for malpractice over there, brother? And they sent me home, and they told me, even though I still couldn't walk, it would pass. Now, I am an acre and a half a man in a half-acre body, and I was probably 3/4 of an acre in a half-acre body back then. So my wife got me into the house, and she did what the doctor told her to do, which was to take my feet by the soles and the toes and push them to my chest as hard as possible to stretch the muscles in my bruised back. We quit after the first half a second of that exercise with me screaming in excruciating pain. But I did eventually. I got the feeling back in my legs. I was able to start to walk, and everything's fine. And I returned to my job. I actually mow the yard. I do all of that. I'm always having problems, but I get to the point where I can walk, and I assume it will eventually pass. And I am in Whiteville again in the Columbus County Courthouse trying a jury trial. I have sat in uncomfortable chairs. I have picked a jury, and I'm now in the middle of a case. And I find this out when I'm getting ready to try to pass over an exhibit. I can't raise my hands any higher than this. And it starts getting where I can't raise my hands any. It gets to the point where this is, right here in a jury trial. It went from full range of motion to this. Now, if you knew me in 1996, remember I said I was 3/4 of an acre of man and a half-acre body? Bo, every bit of that man was proud because everything had come easy. Law school, there are lawyers here. I apologize for what I'm getting ready to say. I enjoyed law school. I had a ball. Law school was not hard to me. I didn't want to be on law review. I took a pass on that. They offered it. You can write. I don't want to do it. Thank you very much. I'm going to go to Brunswick County. I don't need to be in the top 10% of my class. I don't need to be special. Thank you very much. I had T-shirts made up basically to that, that said that. I had some cool T-shirts. Law school was fun. Undergrad was awesome. My job came easy. I like talking to people. I like solving problems. And I generally like to be the center of the attention. It was perfect for a DA. But I'm standing there and tears start to stream down my face because the pain is starting to become unbearable. And I'm almost to the point where I can't walk. I can stand, but I almost can't move. And of those of you that have experienced chronic back pain or severe back pain or anything such as that, you will know when that knife-like searing pain strikes you through the back and the electricity, the current is so live and so fierce that it's like electricity shooting out of the bottom of your toes. That's where I was at. I was actually dressed very much like this, probably the same color tie, same shirt, same blue blazer, just a pair of khakis. And I was in front of everyone, slowly losing my ability to move. I got out of the courtroom, went to see my boss, the elected DA was there. I said, Rex, and at this point I couldn't even take my jacket on or off. Someone else had to do that for me. I said, Rex, I can't finish this. He said, you're in the middle of the trial. I went in, I finished the trial, argued to the jury, and while I was arguing to the jury, I got to the point where the jury had to be excused before I could move out of the way of the jury. The jury was charged and excused while I was standing there because I couldn't move. If I'd have moved, I don't know why. I couldn't sit down, period. So I somehow get in my car. I call the local doctor who was a 1948 Duke football. He was on that 1948-49 Duke Rose Bowl football team. Great guy, Dr. Ogden. And I called him Coach because he had played on that team. I said, Coach, I'm hurting. I need some help. He said, come on by the office. He said, but go by the hospital, because we had talked about what had happened to my back. And he said, go by the hospital and get the x-rays. So somehow I get to the hospital and I get my x-rays and I get back to Dr. Ogden. I'm driving. I roll. Do y'all remember the 1990 Ford Tauruses, the big long bubbly looking things with the big long doors? I roll out of the car into the parking lot and somehow get up on my hands and my elbows and my knees. I finally walk up, get up, and I've got the x-rays in my mouth, and I get in there and the doc meets me in the lobby, and he pulls out the x-ray right there in the lobby, because it's a big open foyer type parlor. It's full of windows, full of light, natural light. And he puts it up and he goes, "Son, how'd you get here?" And I said, "I drove." He said, "No, son, how did you walk in the door?" Because what they had missed at the hospital was, and I still have the x-rays, a divot missing from L4 and a shattered line straight down L5 where they had done that real quick. So L5 proved to be harder, and it broke L4, and L4 caused a compression fracture on L5. And so he said, "Man, who's taking you home? Because I ain't." And my wife came and got me, and he sent me over here, and we went over to Cape Fear, and I got a first opinion. And they said, "Who sent you?" "Dr. Ogden." "Well, we're going to do this, 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 and this." First thing they said. They didn't even really spend, he didn't spend 7 minutes with me. He didn't spend 3 minutes with me. He didn't spend 2 minutes with me. If he spent a minute with me, I'd be surprised. He was ready to go ahead and cut on me. Me and my wife prayed about it right there in that office. Started in front of that man. We were not led to me to be cut on by somebody that seen me for less than 60 seconds. And a friend of mine that's here, we have a friend in common that was put in that situation, and he walked into the doctor's office in Charlotte and never walked again without the aid eventually of canes and arm braces. That weighed heavily on me and my wife as well. Why am I taking the time to tell you this story? That happened in 1996. I had 2 other incidences where I got to the point where I couldn't walk. But I never had surgery. Something always happened. I always walked out of the doctor's office. I don't know why. I don't know how, but I could. Until Thanksgiving of 2002, because I haven't told this story in a long time. I haven't given this testimony in a long time. And it is Thanksgiving, and I, at this point, have 2 of our 4 children, and they're with my parents who are still alive. The greatest blessing God's ever given me, other than my wife and my kids, is my 88-year-old father who takes my kids to school every day and allows me to work in Raleigh, and my 85, soon-to-be 87-year-old mother who, well, she's a grandma. How much more wonderful can that be? You talk about blessed. I mean, once again, I'm sorry that I don't have this. I've got a needle in my arm, and I was left, and my dad, I don't know who my daddy is. That's sort of my dad can talk about that kind of stuff with his family. I mean, you want to talk about miracles. My dad's the only member of his family that learned to read or write. And the only reason he did that is because the guy that was walking to school that day was dressed up, and he said, "Willie, well, let's go to school together." And he walked up there, left the mule in the field, and walked up there and was enrolled in school 2 years late. But he was enrolled. I mean, my life has been the subtle, small blessings of God and the huge miracles of those blessings realized every day. But let's get back to Thanksgiving of 2004. 2 or 4. See, it's been put out of my mind. It's not a worry anymore. I couldn't walk again. I get carried to Duke Hospital. I find a gentleman by the name, we're put together. He's the head of neurology, and he's a teacher, and he's a believer. His name is Lloyd Hay. We haven't seen each other in a long time, and he doesn't know I'm talking about him, but he is a believer. And instead of giving me pills and surgery and all of these things, he gave me time, and he encouraged mine and my wife's prayer. But it got to the point where we got there, and Lloyd has taken the x-ray, and it's 3 o'clock in the morning. We can't even get into the MRI. It's so backed up. He's called back his surgical team. This is the day. We're going to finally have to do it, Marion. This is the time. And he puts the x-ray up just like Dr. Ogden had done years ago, and my spine is a question mark. where the places that are frail were collapsing and the muscles were compensating, and I was slowly being turned like this, and my legs were stopping working again. And he said, "You're going to have an MRI right before surgery. We've got that scheduled. And this is the time. You're going to have surgery." We wait and we wait and we wait. And we get the MRI about, a little after 6 in the morning. The team is back. They've been, the anesthesiologist, the assistant, the nurses, they had all been summoned back from their far-flung Thanksgiving vacations. They come and finally perform a surgery on me in my back. And I barely roll in and out of that MRI. They get me back in the chair, they get me back in the bed. And Dr. Hayes says, "Y'all been praying all night, haven't you?" I said, "Yes, sir, we have." You know what? Dorothy must not have a voice because she doesn't talk a whole lot in these stories, does she? That's my wife. But Dorothy was doing all the talking this time because I still couldn't move. And he pulls up the MRI and he says, "The pain you're feeling right now is from the inflammation and where you have actually bruised yourself by trying to move. Your spine is straight. I'm sending my team home." I broke my back 22 years ago. I've never had surgery. I play baseball and lacrosse and softball with my kids. All I've ever had are a couple of good doctors and the great physician. My testimony is not a barn burner. My testimony is that of the faith of our fathers. God is good. If we do not forsake Him, He will not forsake us. I can talk about things that have happened like this all through my life. But for my Lord and Savior, I would not be before you today. It's a simple thing. It's a simple thing. The greatest gift I have ever been given is never having to face adversity greater than the frailty of my human body. I cannot imagine what Jesus did for me, and I just couldn't walk. He carried a cross. He carried a cross. We're never alone. We're never by ourselves. And we will always persevere. No matter how severe, how difficult, no matter how alone you feel on any given day, I can tell you, I can dance right now if you want to see it. It's not pretty, but I can do it. On any given day, when I share that story, the next time you see me, the fact that I walk up and I shake your hand is a testimony to a living God who has saved my life, has saved my soul, and I celebrate Him on a daily basis. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your attention. I am sorry if this is not what you thought it was going to be. But I tell you what, I can shake your hand and I'll walk out of here with you. And now you know you have a brother in Christ. Thank you so much, and thank you for your attention.